Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here, whether you're watching live or by video for this release event for my book, Hearing the Song of Your Soul. It's part of a series, and I'll introduce you to the series. I'll introduce you to the content. I'll introduce you to one of the world's greatest epic stories. But first, I'd like to introduce you to me. I'm Laura Atmadarshan Santoro. Laura Santoro, the name my parents gave me. Atmadarshan was a name I got in India while studying at a yoga ashram. I've actually studied in ashrams around the world. I've been lucky enough to teach yoga since 2001. And while I was in India, when I got my name, I was also initiated into a lineage of sannyas, which means renunciation. And the particular lineage I was initiated into is Saraswati. Saraswati is the embodiment of learning, but also art in all its forms, including literature. Very fortunate for me, I was introduced to something called the Bhagavad Gita, which means the song of the divine, but a very special kind of the divine. The word Bhagavan comes from the root word bhaj, which means devotion. So it's a song of the divine that is devoted to you, not an impersonal, abstract divine, but one that wants to be in your life. And in the Bhagavad Gita, this manifestation of the divine is the best friend of a man in a very difficult situation. Now, I might be in a difficult situation today. There's road construction going on right outside the house. There's other things going on too, and there may be an interruption. I have to say, I was tempted when I saw the trucks outside the house to go, "Ugh, not today. Maybe I should stop. Maybe I should put this off. It's too hard. Maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll come across." And all these doubts went through my head. And actually, that's perfect because that's what the Bhagavad Gita is all about, a man facing his doubts. A man, a person, a human being who is on the verge of achieving his destiny and then goes, wait a minute, am I willing to pay the cost of embracing my innermost goal? Because it's going to cost me. It may cost me friends. It may cost me my life because, well, Arjun is the name of this man who has his challenges. He is on a battlefield. He is a soldier. It's a civil war. He looks across the battle lines and sees his grandfather, his teachers, his cousins, his uncle. And although his situation is right, he is fighting for the side of justice. He can't bring himself to do it. He can't bring himself to battle those he's grown up with, those who have cared for him, those he respects and who respect him. And like me, like many of us, when we come to challenges that involve putting ourselves on the line, putting our principles on the line, he says, I can't do it. And he wants to walk away. But his best friend, Krishna, is there. This book is amazing and has been read throughout the world for centuries because it can be read in so many ways, especially when it's part of its source material, the Mahabharata. If you've ever heard of the Bhagavad Gita or tried to read it, the first time I tried to read it, I got through the first few verses of the chapter and I went, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on. Because in chapter 1, you get introduced to Arjun, the hero, his best friend Krishna, but also a list of about It seems like 100 other names, and they're hard to pronounce for Westerners, and you have no idea of their backstory. And part of the reason I decided to do this book is at one point, I had a teacher of the Bhagavad Gita who knew all the backstories and presented them. And suddenly, the whole book made sense. And instead of going through the list of names and going, I have no idea what's going on, it's like, oh, I know that. Oh my gosh, this makes it more tragic. He has to fight that person who was his friend before, who was his teacher before, whom he hung out with all the time before. He's got to fight them. And it made it very poignant. When you read the Bhagavad Gita in context with its source material, the Mahabharata, it can really come to life. And that's part of the idea of me writing this particular book. There are many, many translations on Bhagavad Gita. And that's great because they can serve many different types of people. I'm a Westerner, born and raised in the United States of America. And I had very little cultural context to link me to this book and to get me emotionally invested. But once I had it, I thought, this is just like reading a comic book or going to the movies, Star Wars or Harry Potter or Wonder Woman or Black Panther. All these heroes, they're the same. It's just different story. And one of the advantages of the Mahabharata is it's extremely long. It's about 10 times longer than our Bible. And it contains stories about everything. If you need to make a decision, you can go to the book and go, what did this character do? And it doesn't tell you what to do, but it shows you how everybody's decisions play out. So, okay, this person made this choice and this is what happened. Is that what I want to happen to me? Maybe, or maybe I should see what the other characters did. This is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. It can help you in your life. It's about yoga. And you can do this yoga on your mat. We have classes where we do it on our mat, but most importantly, the biggest benefit is you can do it in your life. And in fact, when you most need it in life. To give you a small bit of backstory, and it might not agree with any backstory you've heard because there are actually hundreds of versions of the Mahabharata, which came out of the subcontinent we now know as India. Many different locations, many different peoples, and each one told the stories a little differently. And even the Bhagavad Gita, I did not realize till I started working with it, has different versions. Which one is right? The one that serves you. The one that serves you. And that's part of this idea here. How can we make this wisdom both comprehensible and relevant to you, to a new generation of readers in a land that is separated by time and space from the original setting of the story? Let's give you a little setting of the story. And by the way, the first book, Hearing the Song of Your Soul, which if you get it, won't have this thing that says author's proof on it, is strictly the Gita itself. That way you can read it, and it's been translated in its original poetic meter. We'll be doing some of the chanting. You can listen or join along. In fact, one of the reasons I did this book is I was leading some retreats and people were fascinated by the story and they wanted to chant because it's beautiful when you hear it chanted. But when I provided the original Sanskrit, people went, and they mumbled, I don't know Sanskrit. Even if it's transliterated, I'm not sure I'm saying it right. So that's why it's in English, but the original meter, we could all chant it together and it was very powerful. Another reason that it doesn't have commentary in it, the second book has commentary, which explains more clearly what's going on. But one of the reasons I put out this book without the commentary first is if you have a book with commentary, you see you have a verse and then there's a whole lot of words between the next verse. And if you're trying to chant it or just read the Gita straight through, you have to go, okay, there's a verse. Where's the next one? This one, there are pages and pages between verses. The first book hopefully gets you hooked with the rhythm. And also with the story of the characters, what's going on. If I tell you what's going on first sometimes and then read it's like but this may make you curious. We'll give you a small bit of background. There was a kingdom, and 5 princes were the rightful heirs to this massive empire. However, their father, the king, died in unfortunate circumstances. Fortunately, the king's brother, the prince's uncle, said, I will hold on to the kingdom and the throne until a suitable heir comes of age. Then I will return the kingdom to that rightful ruler. And what's interesting is the one that's holding the kingdom, if you know any Sanskrit, is named Dhritarashtra, which literally means one who holds on. Well, guess what happens when Arjun, his elder brother, who is meant to be the rightful heir, comes of age? Now, do you think the one that was holding on to the kingdom goes, you're of rightful age and here's everything back? You run the show and I'll just be the uncle again? No. Well, maybe King Dhritarashtra, the one who holds, would have let go, except he had children of his own, and his children said, listen, if you stay the king, then after you, we become kings. Get rid of our cousins. And the one that's holding on to the throne goes, at first, I can't do that, but he listens to the pleas of his side of the family and says, okay, let's see what we can do. And his sons find a way to cheat the princes out of their kingdom and exile them to the wilderness, where they spend many years wondering perhaps what we would. If someone took away what was rightfully ours, we might be mad. We might go, how can I get it back? Why does this hurt so bad? How do I get rid of this pain? And for 12 years, these princes in the wilderness worked on themselves. And then the 13th year, they came back to society, back to civilization, and found some allies. And then they decided to go take their kingdom back. Now, this can be read literally. I mentioned the Mahabharata can be read as a history. Actually, in the Mahabharata, it can be read as a science fiction story. The characters visit different planets and fly around in magic chariots hither and thither. That was pretty cool. It can be read as romance. It can be read as a war story, a political commentary, or a guideline for how to live your best life. It depends what you need. Same thing with Bhagavad Gita. So here are 5 princes. If we look at them symbolically, they represent the 5 qualities of ourselves that are divine, that make us divine. And those qualities are our native intelligence, our beauty. Yes, all of us are beautiful. Our skill when we're doing what we're meant to do in life. Love and truth. Those are all we need. These 5 brothers represent us. And the one who holds on to the kingdom represents ego, our false sense of self. There's our real sense of self, these 5 qualities, and our false sense of self. And then the false sense of self has all these children, which are desires. The false self goes, I'm not satisfied with how things are. I'm not satisfied with giving back the kingdom. I'm greedy. I want to keep it. The senses can kind of fall under this purview. The senses go, I want that. I want that. And then our mind runs hither and thither. So here we are at the end of this 13th year. The 5 brothers, representing our divine qualities, want to take the kingdom back from the selfish who are holding on to it wrongfully. And there's going to be a war. This is the start of the Gita. Arjun, one of the princes, is lined up. And again, he sees his uncle, his cousins, his teachers are across from him, ready to fight to selfishly keep what's not theirs. Arjun is the born warrior whose destiny it is to reclaim the kingdom. On a symbolic level, he's the part of us that wants to take back our inner divinity. He represents us. He's in a chariot driven by his best friend Krishna, who represents the divine. The divine is best friend. If you've ever thought, geez, I could really use the divine, however I think of it, right here beside me, telling me what to do, that's the start of the story. Arjun's going, what do I do? My destiny is to become a warrior. My destiny is to rule this kingdom, which has been stolen and has been ruled by usurpers, murderers. But in order to get it back, I will have to kill them. And I don't know that I want to. He's fought other wars against faceless people. Doesn't bother him. But now he's got to fight against people he knows and loves. This represents our struggle. Arjun is meant to do something, to initiate a new golden age, but he's held back by his own doubts and fears. When we're about to embrace our destiny, for example, make a career choice that feels right, do we have in our head the voices of maybe parents and teachers or people who love us around us going, don't do that. It's not prestigious enough. There's not enough money. We have to stand up for ourselves. And Arjun is going, is it better to stand up for myself, my brothers, and to do what's right, even though it's hard, or to just go, I don't want to make any trouble. I don't want to make any waves. I'll just do what those other people want me to do to keep the peace. And his best friend, Krishna, who represents the soul. Arjun represents you as an individual, your outer self, the self you project to the world that interacts with the world. And Krishna represents the deepest part of you, the divine part, the soul. And Krishna is going, listen to me. Let me tell you what happens if you make this choice to back down from your destiny. And that's the story of the Gita. It can help all of us with our choices. And some would say it can't really be a book about yoga because it's on a violent battlefield. If you can live your yoga or your principles on a battlefield when people are trying to kill you, if you can stay true to yourself in that situation, you can do it in any situation. And how? That's what this Gita is about. How you find yourself, remain true to yourself, and feel good about doing what you're meant to do without guilt, without fear that you'll try and you'll fail. That's why I've called this book The Song of Your Soul. It's easy to think of the divine as something outside of us that we have to find. And what this book is reinforcing is it's right here. We just need to listen. We just need to hear. And to help me hear the message of the Gita and try to make my presentation authentic, especially to Westerners, I lived each of the verses for a day. And I can tell you that even though it's a book about war, if you live these verses, your conflicts will start to dissolve. We will read some of these verses. While I get ready, if you want to join in the chanting, you can listen and hear the beautiful lyrics of the poetry, which I thought was so important. You can also go to our website, which is the hard one. The hard spelling is Dharmic Kshetra Yoga. The easy one is welcomingdestiny.com. You might think, why the hard one, Dharmic Kshetra Yoga? Well, that's the first words of the Bhagavad Gita. Dharmic Kshetra, it means field of your destiny. And when my partner and I started our business, we're like, what do we want people to do? Yes, yoga. Yes, feel better. But real healing is about finding what you're meant to do and doing it. And I can tell you from living this, when I was working, and I'm still working with this book and with this series, my life changed. My dreams changed. I could sleep better. I felt better. I interacted with people better. Oh, how do you embrace your destiny, like Arjun is trying to do, and become all you're meant to be? All right. So this first book, The Hearing the Song of Your Soul, if you read the introduction, I encourage you to read the introductions in all the books, but it tells you both in the ebook and the paperback how to get a copy of me chanting one of the verses. We'll be doing chapter 7. That way you can hear it. If you're wondering, if you're looking at it, you're like, I'm not finding the poetry because, it doesn't rhyme. Maybe the rhythm's not that evident. You can hear it. And then you can get it in your head, have a little earworm, or you can just read it straight. Again, it's what serves you. So if you go to our website, welcomingdestiny.com, and on the menu, there's something that says resources. If you hover on that and click the Song of Your Soul and scroll down a little, you'll see just within a few lines, view or download a free preview of chapter 7. And then under that, when we're done today, we'll do part of chapter 7, but you can hear me read all of chapter 7 in the original meter. Okay, that's also on that page. If you want to get that, go for it. You can download the PDF, whatever. If you have your book, you can get your book, or you can listen. This was meant to be shared aloud. It's a discussion. This whole book is a conversation between two people who care about each other very much. They're best friends. Man, human, divine. The divine and the human as best friends. I'm going to be chanting from chapter 7. The title is The Yoga of Knowledge and Direct Experience. In Sanskrit, it's Jnana Vijnana Yoga. The yoga of knowledge and special knowledge, experiential knowledge. Okay. Well, you are welcome to chant. You can listen. You can close your eyes if you want. Be chanting, from verse 1 to 11. Nothing too tiring. Okay. Krishna, representing your innermost nature, your soul, is talking to Arjun, who is you. And Krishna says, under my complete protection, practicing yoga with your mind intent on me, O child, hear how to know me fully without doubt. To you I shall grant both knowledge and the direct experience of the true self. When you know this, there is nothing else to be known. Of many thousands, perhaps one tries to attain perfect knowing. Of those few seekers, perhaps one achieves my true reality. Indeed, earth, water, fire, air, space, sensory mind, intuition, and the sense of I am are the 8 parts that form my own nature. From this more crude nature, know that I have a distinct higher part, the very life force mighty one, by which this whole world is sustained. These dual natures are the womb from which every living thing springs. I am the source of the cosmos and also its dissolution. There is nothing greater than I, O mighty prince of worldly wealth. The cosmos is strung upon me like gems knotted upon a thread. O Kunti's son, I am the fresh taste of water, light of the moon, and the sun Om in sacred lore, sound in space prowess in humans. I am the scent of fresh turned earth, the blaze of fire, the life in all living beings, and the restraint of those who observe stringent vows. O Arjuna, know that I am the timeless seed of all beings, the wisdom of the wisest men, the light of the illumined ones. I am the might of the mighty, when untainted by crude desire. Best of your race I also am, desire unopposed to duty. Good. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you chanted along, did you make any mistakes? I made one right off the bat so you'd feel comfortable making one too. The understanding of the Gita evolves. And actually, that's one of the things it's really taught me. I have a perfectionist nature. And when I make a mistake, I want to stop and give up. But you just keep going. And that's part of the gift of the Gita. I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly. I'm not going to be able to achieve my destiny perfectly. But I'm just going to do my best. And if I make a trip up, I'll get up and do it again. And I just wanted to acknowledge thank you to those who are commenting in the chat. It is exciting to have you here. And I'm glad some of you are reading along with the book. In this book, it is just the Gita. As I mentioned, you can hear it, you can chant it. The second book that's coming out in July has some commentary, and part of the reasons are to help you appreciate it even more, the beauty. For example, the nicknames. When Arjuna and Krishna talk, it's probably like you and your buddies talking. I wouldn't go like, if I was talking to Maria right now, I might not just say, hi, Maria, how are you, Maria? Good to see you, Maria. I might say, hi, Maria, how are you, my friend? Oh, you're like the best person, the person with the biggest heart. You're my big-hearted friend. And describe her that way. That's what these characters are doing, but Krishna uses his nicknames for Arjun quite ironically. And one of my favorite examples in this reading is, well, there are two that stand out. One is in verse 7-5, Krishna calls Arjun mighty one, while saying, yes, mighty one, but I am the life force by which this whole world is sustained. How mighty are you, really? And then in verse 7, he calls Arjun mighty prince of worldly wealth. Oh, yes, you have a lot of worldly wealth, and I'm wearing the universe around my neck like a necklace. So who's really wealthy? Krishna is trying to get Arjun to not rely on the material world for his satisfaction, but to rely on what he knows within. That's kind of what happens in this first book, Hearing the Song of Your Soul. The second book, Understanding the Song of Your Soul, to give you some nuances. And then there's also a third book, and it's called Embracing the Song of Your Soul. And that one's going to have two translations. This poetic one, the goal of which is for any Westerner to be able to kind of read it, even if you don't know much about yoga or Sanskrit. But if you do know something about yoga and Sanskrit, then sometimes the terms that are more understandable are less precise, like in science. Okay. For example, the universe, according to one particular philosophy associated with yoga, is made up of 3 gunas. And if you know what the gunas are, you go, yes. And I know they're tamas, rajas, and sattva, and I know what they do. And yet, guna is such a good word, but if you don't, you're going, I have no idea. Qualities. And then when I just call them the qualities of nature, it's a little nebulous and it takes some explanation. So that explanation would be an understanding the song of your soul, but in embracing the song of your soul, we use the actual words gunas, tamas, rajas, sattva. If you understand them, then the passages will be more precise and clearer. And if you don't understand them and read this book, then you'll understand it. And what's fantastic about that is you'll get a new worldview. You'll get the chance to shift from your narrow look at the world to try somebody else's look. It can be quite life expanding. And it also talks about some of the symbolism. Oh, in verse 15:1, tree. I'm just going to read to you a little bit, just a few verses from 15:1. And part of the reason is it's got a different meter. And the second meter is said to be used for things that are really important. So in verse 15:1, the chapter is called The Yoga of the Ultimate Spirit. Krishna says to Arjun, the soul says to the little self, adrift in this world and afraid, the soul says, they speak of the eternal tree with roots above and branches down, whose leaves are ancient chants and hymns. One who knows this knows the scriptures. Downward and upward extend its branches, fed by the three qualities, sense objects, its buds. Also downward stretch its roots, generating actions in the universe of humankind. Its form is not of this world, so it is not perceived, nor its end, its start, nor foundation. This sacred tree with its firmly grown roots must be cut down with the strong axe of attachment. We have to cut down a tree, and a sacred tree. And some people go, aye, we have to cut down a tree. Symbolism. What this tree really is not something we think of as a living being outside with its leaves and the squirrels and the birds, the nuts and the pine cones and all that. It's a symbol of our nervous system, which kind of, if you took it out, would look a little like a tree. You know, here's the brain. It's big and it's supported by the spinal cord, but the symbolism of this tree, when we look at the deeper meaning, is this tree is sacred to us. This nervous system, it lets us perceive. The sense objects keep it alive. What we see, hear, taste, everything, that's coming in through the receptive part of the nervous system. There are two different parts, the sensory part, the action part. So it comes in through the sensory part, comes up, the brain makes a decision, and then it generates action in the world of humankind. It says, all right, I smell pie or cake. I'm going to make myself move and get the cake, and then I'm going to eat the cake. Okay, so as a sense comes in, action goes out. Not necessarily a bad thing unless we get really attached to it. And the senses drive our lives, and our lives are determined by what's going on outside of us instead of what's going on inside. When we talk about cutting down this tree, the acts of detachment is, it's not non-attachment. It's not necessarily living in a hermitage, but going, if I have cake, I'm good. And if I don't have cake, I'm good. I am not attached to cake. It doesn't mean no cake ever. Just, yeah, cake is not ruling my thoughts. I'm neither craving it nor running away from it. I have an inner peace related to cake. Then when we look at cutting down the other aspects of that tree, it's meant to let us be in peace with whatever we have or don't have. We don't crave something we don't have, and we don't resist something that we're gifted with, that we're lucky enough to have. Well, that's part of the symbolism. And the Gita itself, a lot of its rhythm and its beauty is self-evident, but sometimes it's a little obscure. And that's why having a guide can help you, so you don't think, I read the Gita and it says go around and cut down a bunch of trees, because that's not what it's about. Just like it doesn't have to be literally about war and fighting and killing people. It's finding the parts in you that are holding you back and getting rid of them. For example, one of the people Arjun has to face in war is called the grandfather. And it's not the grandfather that's holding Arjun back in his physical form. It's everything that grandfather has told Arjun in the past that limits his thoughts of himself. So the grandfather represents anything that our older relatives, our parents, our grandparents, our uncles, our aunts, has told us that's made us feel less than perfect, that we've internalized, and that is keeping us from reaching our goals. Remember those voices of, it's not prestigious enough, it's not enough money, it's not this, it's not good to talk about polite company, what you want to do with your life. Okay. That's what we have to get rid of. And that's what this book is about. Letting go of what no longer serves you. And should I give away the end? By the end, because Arjun's listened to the soul that's his best friend, he knows exactly what he needs to do. And he does it. He does it. And by doing so, he makes the world right again, both outside himself and inside. And that's something, if you've ever wondered, especially right now, it always seems like we're living in a time of turmoil, right? What can you do? The Gita gives you answers. Gives you answers for addressing things you think are unfair or that need to be changed for the good of all beings, not just yourself. It gives you insights and tools because you have a destiny and no one can do it but you. So as I take a look down here, it also mentioned some publishing chat. Can give you a couple behind the scenes ideas, but another great place if you'd like to join us live, Thursday, July 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a Zoom session, and that way we can dialogue, and some of the beta readers will be there. So this is one thing that goes on with the books. A book is never written on its own. So those of you who bought the book, look at the acknowledgement section because you may be in there. And even though my name's on the front, there are some very special people that supported me in this. And one of the things that the Gita, again, has taught me with my perfectionism is, first, when I say something and I think it's perfectly clear, no, getting beta readers is really helpful. So one of the things I tried to do with this book is get 4 beta readers from vastly different backgrounds, everything from a young person who hadn't yet gone to college and had never heard of the Gita, to someone in their 80s that had done some editing work and had never heard of the Gita, to someone who had heard about the Gita and knew a lot about the Gita, yoga, and Sanskrit, to someone who translated Christian scriptures, because they helped me see my own blind spots. That's what people in the world are valuable for. You wonder, why are other people in this world and why are they pointing these things out? It's to help us see our own blind spots and embrace them and learn from them. And also they helped with editing. There was an editor as well. Well, I read this book countless times. The beta readers read it and we found so many mistakes. And then the editor comes in at the end and finds more. This is a great example of the Gita because you get back your proof when you think I'm done. I'm almost done. I just have to hit publish, right? And then you come back with a book full of post-it notes and you're like, oh, geez, it's never going to be done. This can happen in our destiny. I'm almost there. It's never done. It's not going to be done. And that's okay too. Learning to let go and yeah, I make mistakes. This is humbling because it teaches us compassion for all. Everyone makes mistakes. How do we deal with that? Both in them and in ourselves. Okay. And also the editors who helped me break down this book, because originally, some of you know, it was going to be like one book and it was going to be 700 and some pages and it's going to be the reference for everybody. And the editor pointed out is not everybody wants to embrace a 700 some page book and go, I can do that, or spend the money on or find place for that on the bookshelf or in the Kindle. So it's been broken down. That's why it's in these three parts. And you can just stick with the part that works for you. You can grow with the Gita. You can have, even if you have the commentary with the Poetic Translation, you have just this to chant with and to experience it in different ways according to your needs, what you need. This series is about what you need from the Bhagavad Gita. You are the inspiration. Okay. So I want to thank you. If you have any questions, I see some comments. Yay, I'm finally ready. That's what Arjun is saying. I hope I'm finally ready to embrace my destiny. Oh, you can learn more about embracing your destiny through this book on the website I mentioned, welcomingdestiny.com. Under the resources, the Song of Your Soul page, we've got a list of upcoming events. Even if you're watching this in a year or so, yay, we'll still have events going on. There are free resources. There's a link to the YouTube channel. I mentioned that this book has yoga practices in it, and some of them are shared on the YouTube channel. There are podcasts on different aspects of the Gita, videos, worksheets, freebies. And then if you want to learn more, classes, there will be classes with this book, retreats, our annual retreat, workshops, more. And more content videos will be coming out, like the Gita in a minute of the Gita, one verse of the Gita at a time. You can digest it that way. And I'm always open to your suggestions. It's about you. It is about you. The song of your soul. Hearing it, understanding it, embracing it, and perhaps being lucky enough to share it through your life, through your work, through just being. Oh, I invite you to be in touch. Comments, go to the website and contact me. Watch out for events where we can meet, like book signings. I'd love to meet you in person, or see you. If I know you, I'd love to see you in person. Okay. Again, I appreciate you. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Now I have to find the button. Oh, there it is.